Well, hi, and welcome back to the show. I hope you're doing well. Let's start with, amid this government shutdown, Trump is using the most abuser partner tactics you can imagine. Very abusive behavior here, where he's saying, if Democrats don't give me what I want, then I'm going to, well, actually, let's not give it all away in the first 10 seconds. Let me play this clip from an interview where he lays out exactly what he's doing. He's just admitting it. And you know the right would be outraged about this if it were Obama or Biden playing these same tricks. Here's him on OAN.
There was an OMB memo going around suggesting that there might be firings during the shutdown. Do you think that will happen if the shutdown goes for a little bit of time, sir?
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
So, first of all, he uses the same a lot of people are saying fill in. I'm not saying that I wanted this, but a lot of people are saying that. Isn't it strange? And here's why. And so I don't believe that's correct. But if it were, here's why it would be perfectly fine if I did believe that. And what I mean by these abusive tactics is it's sort of look what you made me do. I had to hit you because you provoked me. I had to cheat on you because you brought your hot sister to Thanksgiving. Look what you made me do. You can't bring a hottie patati while I'm eating turkey. You know, turkey is an aphrodisiac.
This is turkey time, you know.
For me. And he's doing something similar where he's saying, because they're making these demands about healthcare, I'm going to use, probably illegally, the shutdown. That doesn't give him this unique ability to permanently shut down programs and cut funding permanently. That's not how a shutdown works. But he's just making up that justification to say the Democrats are making me cut infrastructure investments, which is one of the things. The Democrats are making me fire, and then he specified in the clip I'll show you next, Democratic federal workers, which sounds utterly against protocol to say you're fired because what, your party affiliate, or you look like a Democrat, which could get real problematic real fast with Trump, as I'm sure you could imagine. And this is the clip I referenced before.
A lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things. We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. When you shut it down, you have to do layoffs, so we'd be laying off a lot of people that are...
That's not true. He's lying. That's not true. Other government shutdowns, there are pauses to services, there are furloughs, there are people working without pay. There's not, hey, now I can continue the Project 2025 plan of gutting the bureaucracy, in many cases outside of my legal authority, without just cause. In some cases, he's saying, I guess, because they're Democrats, and permanently, without congressional authorization, just end previously appropriated funds going to certain projects. But the Democrats made me do it, is his argument, like a toxic and abusive boy toy. He then said, which was very outrageous, I'm going to try not to get too outraged, but do you remember all through the campaign, Trump going, Project 2025? Whose project? And who is Russ Vogt? Who even is that? That's like your best friend. I've never heard of her. Oh, it's a him? Oh, I don't know. I have a meeting today, he said, with Russ Vogt. He of Project 2025 fame. He's mocking us. To determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, Democrat agencies If any supporter of his says he's not trying to weaponize his authority against his political enemies, you doofus. Of which a political scam he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those will be temporary or permanent, I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They're not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again, President DJT. So, continuing forward on what was already the plan, you can't call something, I'm trying to think of another analogy, but whatever. You can't call something the fault of the Democrats when you've been doing that thing the whole administration and trying to, amid legal challenges, court cases, find legal justification to do that thing. He's been trying to do these mass layoffs. He's been trying to gut these programs. And then he seems to think it's all fun and good because Democrats like those programs. What is he talking about? Well, he gutted Medicaid. He's going to try to do that even more just because Democrats like it. And just remember that he specifically during the campaign said, I know nothing about Project 2025. He of Project 2025 fame. I know nothing about it. Now Russ Vogt of Project 2025 is going to run the show. And I did see people circulating this clip saying, Rosa O'Donnell, any thoughts on this?
No, that Donald Trump has disavowed Project 2025. He says that is not his campaign plan.
As you know, I am a former prosecutor. His DNA is all over it. All over it. His running mate wrote the foreword to the book of the author of Project 2025. I believe Donald Trump's name appears at least 300 times in Project 2025, and it is a blueprint, a detailed blueprint that is about the danger and the detail of what Donald Trump and his allies plan if he is in the White House again.
Trump is treating us like we're stupid. He's treating us like he thinks we just fell out of a tree of some sort, you know? And
you think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
And I'm just sick of it. Luke, oh no, you made that reference. Who could have thought that? So please do, as we continue, there's a lot more to look at even just in this segment. Click the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. It's free, but it supports the work that we do. The other part is Trump's going, all right, Russ Vogt, you want to dismantle the government? We're going to use the shutdown as your excuse to do it. Some of the messaging, like from Mike Johnson here, is, well, damn it. I know Russ is so heartbroken he has to rip away benefits and cut funds to crucial programs even more, but then other people are saying something very different.
They have now effectively turned off the legislative branch, the Article 2 branch of, or the Article 1, sorry, the Article 1 branch of our government, and they've turned it over to the executive, okay? So in that situation, when Congress turns off the funding and the funding runs out, it is up to the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, to determine how those resources will be spent. He has that responsibility given to him by the Democrats in the Senate. They can't complain about it, and he doesn't want to do it. But in this scenario, what they have to do is make very difficult decisions. Most of the responsibility falls to Russ Vogt. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as you know. Whomever is seated in the chair at OMB during a shutdown has to do the same thing. Russ does this reluctantly. We had a 45-minute...
Reluctantly. He's very sad. He's very heartbroken. And no, Mike Johnson's not being honest. It's not true that this is just how shutdowns go. Yes, there are hard decisions that normally have to be made about which services continue, about which checks go out, who gets furloughed, etc. Permanent changes to the government and shutting down of certain programs is not at all how this normally goes and how the legal authority allows. And just remember, I do want to make sure I get this correct. Let's see. Okay, let me see. Okay, so the current shutdown we're in is under Donald Trump. The shutdown before that was under, Trump. The shutdown before that, though, is under, Trump. Also Trump. Where's Biden in that? Oh, there weren't any. Interesting. And so Mike Johnson there is trying to portray this as reluctant decisions. But Mike Lee says that Russ Vogt has been dreaming of this since puberty, which is a weird way to word it.
But this is what they're doing. They're doing it deliberately. It's going to harm them. Because Russ Vogt, the OMB director, has been dreaming about this moment, preparing this moment since puberty. Russ Vought has a plan, and that plan is going to succeed in...
Who talks like that? Just say he's been dreaming of this moment forever, since puberty? I don't want to hear about Russ Vought's puberty. I don't want to hear about when he had his first period. Wrong one. And that's how he worded it. So, I mean, this is an example. They're trying to punish Schumer and New York by potentially permanently getting rid of, but definitely withholding billions of dollars from projects there. And we talked about the justification yesterday being unconstitutional DEI principles, which we're still trying to get to the bottom of how a tunnel could be DEI. Of course, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is this only a tunnel for people who have had sexual partners of like both genders? Or I don't even understand where their logic goes there. Then we have Levitt here.
And that's why the president put out a statement this morning saying that
the T in LGBTQ stands for tunnels, okay, and the B stands for bridges. There's a lot of connections there that you can notice. It would have been better if that clip had played right when I finished my sentence, but here we go.
And that's why the president put out a statement this morning saying that we're going to start looking across the board at layoffs and at agencies that we feel do not best serve the American taxpayer that may need to be halted or permanently cut.
Why? Why permanently cut? And then you have Rich McCormick, the Republican congressman, getting confronted with the data that indicates Republicans are actually getting the blame.
Democrats, 7 in 10 Americans side with Democrats in saying Obamacare subsidies should be extended. We're joined now by Republican Congressman Rich McCormick of Georgia. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. It's a really interesting poll because it shows a lot more people are blaming the president and congressional Republicans than Democrats. Yes, there are a lot of people who aren't really sure what to think at this point, but how are you seeing this?
Well, first of all, I'm seeing polls all over the place. It depends on how you poll. Literally, last night I was listening to another liberal media station that had it flipped upside down, and the guy who was being interviewed said, no, that's just the way we phrased it in the polling. Polling is not very accurate because the pollsters generally get out of it what they want. Depending on how you phrase the question is, you'll get exactly the question you're looking for, the answer that you're looking for. So I don't trust those polls.
Except for whenever we find polls that say Trump has some good data point, but otherwise the polls are so dumb. And you know the reason why, as Rich, and I think he's in Georgia, Cumming, Georgia. Good. So he's sitting there, Cumming, Georgia, and he's saying what's difficult is these polls is kind of just how you ask the question, and they'll use these little tricks, and the wording will be really complex, and it'll kind of get people disoriented. Like, for example, it's sort of hard for a respondent to understand how do you even respond to who is to blame for the shutdown. Like, that's hard to figure. That's a really tricky question to figure out. What does it mean? So you can, by asking that question, you can get the question that you're looking for, as Rich said. Now, just because we're on the topic of Rich McCormick and we haven't talked about him in a while, I do have to just do a couple flashbacks because Rich never does well when he's doing anything. No, when he's doing his job or he's appearing on television. You might remember when Trump froze funds for meals for students in schools. He had this now legendarily bad answer.
Would you support getting rid of, school lunch for vulnerable kids and breakfast and Head Start, for example, and getting rid of childhood cancer research? Do you support that? And what do you say to your constituents? I want to follow up on that question too, because I didn't hear an answer from you.
Sure. So I'm an ER doc, and I know that philanthropy is where you get most of your money for childhood cancer research, for example. And it's not just you look at what the president just proposed, a $500 billion spending bill on AI to produce cancer early detection in the first stage on most body parts. That's his spending bill where he wants to increase cancer research. So it's just about what part of the money it comes out of. When you talk about school lunches, hey, I worked my way through high school. I don't know about you, but I worked since I was, before I was even 13 years old, I was picking berries in the field before we had child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy. And when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through. You're telling me that kids who stay at home, instead of going to work at Burger King and McDonald's during the summer, should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need to have a top-down review.
I think you're painting a lot of these kids with a broad brush. I would say that's not necessarily a fair assessment of all of the kids.
That part is always... Wait, little kids should go hungry because they should be picking berries in a field? No. So then maybe you're painting with a broad brush. Exactly. It's always... Did he say he was an ER doc? Well, that's going to make me really nervous next time I go to the ER. Yikes. I feel like we'd have more qualified people than Mr. Rich. And then this town hall moment was the other Rich moment I wanted to remind you of.
Tyranny is rising in the White House, and a man has declared himself our king. So I would like to know, rather, the people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
I'm not going to give you my best foghorn leghorn response to that.
But I forgot about this part. This caused a division in our audience. I won't say it again. I looked it up. Don't worry. I know what it means, but I forgot. Foghorn leghorn.
I'm not going to give you my best foghorn leghorn response to that. But so you can go ahead and sit down. Thank you. When you talk about tyranny, when you talk about presidential power, I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected.
Anyways, so he's never doing a great job, I hate to say. Speaking of people who aren't doing great jobs, Ted Cruz also weighed in on all of this.
Chuck Schumer and the Democrats force a shutdown, which they now have, that President Trump is going to use that as an opportunity not to tell people you're furloughed for a few days, but instead to send pink slips and to get rid of left-wing bureaucrats who are imposing left-wing priorities.
So they're just using it, again, as justification for what they've already wanted to do. They've already had a bunch of legal challenges because of, and I'll just say, I think, is this fair? Maybe you take a couple days off after this, Ted.
How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
Maybe we just take a couple days off. Maybe you need to be furloughed, Ted. And then Ted was posting edits of all of the Senate Democrats onto 44, I guess, of the Senate Democrats that have the sombreros because there was outrage about Trump doing that to Hakeem Jeffries. So he's saying, until you open the government, I'm going to edit everyone into a sombrero. To which I say, Ted, sit this one out.
How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
Hey, Ted, I don't want to hear from you. Was it an accident that he said that? Yes. Will I keep playing it? Also, yes. Okay, now we have Jim Jordan. I just want to give you, I know this is taking a second, I just want to give you the full array of what everyone's saying now that the government has officially shut down.
To this point, Congressman, and while we introduced you with your current committee titles, you, of course, played a key role in the House Freedom Caucus during a number of shutdown fights past. The Washington Post editorial board wrote this about the Freedom Caucus and the tactics. Many of the tactics that we're seeing here, there is some mirrored comparisons. They write this, quote, "The Freedom Caucus tactics have failed to achieve Republicans' goals every time. There is no reason to think this shutdown will end any differently for its left-wing counterpart. The most likely outcome is that Democrats will come to regret having just walked into a trap." Go ahead.
So just so you know the context of the question, he has been a part of the House Freedom Caucus, the far-right part of the Republican Party that has tried to leverage shutdowns for their own reasons before. So she's reading that to say, now I guess the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post is using the story of the far right part of the Republican Party trying to use government as a shutdown as precedent to say that the Washington Post op-ed writer doesn't believe this will work for Democrats leveraging the shutdown. But either way, this is also a moment of hypocrisy for Jim Jordan, which is you can't do the I can't believe they try to leverage the shutdown when that's been something you've done, Jim, and we know it, Jim.
Well, I would just say this. In the past, when Republicans have been involved in fighting for a policy position around the end of the fiscal year, when we were in those positions, our policy position was at least what the election was about. There is no way Democrats can say 11 months ago, we just had a national election. President Trump won in a big way. There is no way they can say, oh, Obamacare premium tax credits and health care for non-citizens, those were the central issues. That they weren't even on the scoreboard. They weren't even an issue at all. The issue was securing the border. That was the central issue of the last campaign. So their position is contrary to common sense, and it's over a policy difference that wasn't even part of the debate.
So first of all, and then he's going to say the part that's really notable. That's just something you came up, like you just pulled that out of your, and you just kind of said, oh, well, the reason that the important principle everyone lives by is you can use shutdowns to leverage policy concessions from the party in the White House if that policy was a big thing in the last election. Then it's okay. Who said? Who said, Jim? Everyone actually agrees with what I've said, which is me being honest and transparent. We all are okay with leveraging a shutdown if we agree with what they're trying to leverage for. That's just how it is. I didn't like when Republicans tried to leverage because they were trying to leverage for things I found ridiculous. In this case, I think using a rare moment of power that the Democrats have when they haven't had much while Trump has been in the White House, try to get him to undo some of the damage he's done to the healthcare system is a good chance for them to leverage their power. And that's really the principle. And if you are honest about that, then you aren't being hypocritical. But him coming up with it's about whether or not, and healthcare was a big thing in the last election, so that also doesn't make sense, and they're going to run on this in the future elections. But then he says the real zinger here in a second.
It wasn't even part of the election just 11 months ago. When at least when we had this shutdown situation, we were fighting to repeal Obamacare, which was the central issue in those campaigns.
When we were leveraging a shutdown, it was to repeal Obamacare. Okay, so then let's pose this in a really complicated question to the American people. Rich McCormick, this might be too tough of a polling question to get concise, but do you find it more reasonable to leverage a shutdown to protect people's health coverage or rip it away? Because Jordan was okay doing that for repealing Obamacare. They're trying to protect health insurance. Oh no. I gotta figure out this glitch, guys. My Twitter will just play clips without my permission, strangely. But then Chris Cuomo had Scott Turner on and asked about, and he's the HUD secretary for Trump, asked about the Hatch Act. You're not supposed to be leveraging government. I've used leveraging too many times. My goodness. You're not supposed to use government agencies, government buildings, government staff to further a political agenda. Now that's really murky, obviously, but maybe putting on a government website, the radical left shut down the government, is a violation of the Hatch Act. It's why you'll see in campaign videos, they'll blur the presidential seal because it's like, hey, you're not supposed to use the office of the president. It's kind of a difficult thing to enforce. But Chris Cuomo says to the HUD secretary, don't you think that type of blatant propaganda being perpetuated by official government agencies is a violation?
I'm not used to seeing naked political propaganda on a government website. Are you worried about this violating the Hatch Act?
No, sir, we're not worried at all. And this is not about propaganda, Chris. This is just about letting the American people know what's going on. But we really need to be talking about how this government shutdown impacts the American people.
I want to do that, but this is part of the impact, right? I mean, when you're saying the radical left is shutting it down and they're doing it for $1.5 trillion for illegals, that's not true, Secretary Turner. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's propaganda.
Well, you know what, though, Chris, you look at this, and I've heard all the cries and the outcry and people saying this is propaganda, that it's a violation of the Hatch Act. You know, to me, the Democrats and the far left are using this as a distraction to really deflect from what...
Now here, if I'm going to be honest, here was my genuine reaction when I saw this clip. The Hatch Act? We're talking about Section 5 of the Hatch Act? Trump's like completely violating any law that he possibly can, dismantle the government, brazen corruption, almost certainly illegal or should be illegal corruption. Did you violate the Hatch Act? It's like all of this is happening. Unprecedented authoritarianism. Was Caroline Leavitt speaking in her official capacity when she said that campaign message, or her or her campaign capacity? That's going to be a very inconsequential aspect to all of this. There's so much. This is going to be too long of a segment. I'm sorry, but there's so much. I've been meaning to update you about this. Mine Baby Mine. Trump officials offer $625 million to rescue coal. The new effort, which includes opening 3.1 million acres of federal land for mining and eliminating pollution limits, aims to save an industry that has been declining for decades. And why I saw this was Cole texted me, yay, they're trying to save me. No.
Clean, beautiful coal.
I knew it. I didn't know when it was going to come, but I knew it was going to come. I was going to start this part by saying, I hate coal. And then read this headline. And so what's ridiculous is this feels more
We're
of
doing
a
coal.
Yeah. This feels more of a thank you, David. More of a culture war fight, because there's not trying to revitalize or create new coal projects when it's just more expensive and horrible pollution wise, and renewable energy options are cheaper and better for the planet, is seemingly just so they can go, suck on that, libs. We did coal. Here's someone.
Breaking news for us this morning. Tell us.
Yes, Maria, we're announcing today expanded programs to help the American coal industry. And we're helping it just because for years it's been under assault. It was out of fashion with the Chardonnay set in San Francisco, Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, by the way, if you just started watching this show, our producer's name is Cole. So that's why we do that whole thing. We do this whole thing about it every time it comes up. It's not that funny, but we find it funny. And Trump once said, clean, beautiful coal. And then David Pakman said, we doing coal. And it just sounds like David Pakman saying he's doing coal, but he's really saying we're doing coal. So we bring it up a lot. So just make sure you know about that. Next time I bring it up, don't ask again. But, I mean, it went out of fashion because it wasn't effective compared to now the other energy generation options that we have. And I love, of course, our coal miners, and I want the absolute best for them, but also wasting a bunch of money so that you can say, we're sticking it to the green energy libtards, is, to me, a waste. And they're preoccupied with things like this too. Energy Department adds climate change and emissions to banned words list in the latest in a series of Trump administration efforts to dispute, silence, or downplay climate change. So don't, in official things in the Energy Department, don't you utter climate change, green, and decarbonization. List of words to avoid at its Office of Energy Efficiency of Renewable Energy. Are you kidding me? Y'all sound so much more. You got onto people for telling others that they shouldn't use this pronoun or that, and they should use this pronoun instead. And you, but now you're not supposed to use the word green. You're supposed to avoid climate change, and you're not supposed to talk about emissions at the thing that oversees renewable energy. How could that possibly go wrong?